I'm standing in the middle of the student union while Sloan Mercer tells someone I'm taken, and that's when I realize I've waited too long to fix this. She says it casually, like it's a fact everyone already knows. Like she's helping. Oh, Rowan's not single, Sloan says, smiling. She has a girlfriend. The girl she's talking to nods immediately. No questions. No follow-up. Just acceptance. And I'm standing there, holding my coffee, heart racing, thinking, this is the moment where I'm supposed to say something. I don't. That's how you should understand the story from the beginning. I didn't freeze because I was confused. I froze because letting the lie live felt easier than killing it in public. And now it's breathing on its own. Let me rewind. The lie was small. That was the first mistake. It slipped out during one of those group conversations at Westbridge College, the kind that happens when too many people are crowded around a table, everyone half performing, half listening. Someone was talking about dating. Someone else joked about how I never flirted back. So, what's your deal, Rowan? Someone asked. You just not interested? I shrugged. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I have a girlfriend, I said. That was it. One sentence. No details. No name. No backstory. The room reacted exactly the way I hoped it would. A few nods. A quick, though. The door closed. Relief flooded my chest so fast it almost made me dizzy. Because here's the truth I don't usually say out loud. I hate being asked why I'm single. Not because I'm ashamed, but because every honest answer invites more questions. Questions I don't want to answer in front of people who don't actually care. Saying I had a girlfriend felt like putting on armor. A clean, respectable excuse. A way to opt out without being interrogated. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself I'd forget about it by tomorrow. That's when I noticed Sloan Mercer. She was sitting across from me, quiet, watching me with an expression that didn't match the room. Everyone else had already moved on. Sloan hadn't. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't amused. She looked interested, not in a flirty way, in a focused way, like she'd just learned a piece of information she knew how to use. I felt something tighten in my stomach. Then someone changed the subject. The conversation drifted. The moment passed. Or so I thought. Later that night, as people started splitting off and heading back to their dorms, Sloan fell into step beside me like it was the most natural thing in the world. She didn't ask about my girlfriend. She didn't ask anything. She just said, "Good." I glanced at her. "Good." She smiled slightly. "Then you understand discretion." I laughed, nervously, because I didn't know what else to do. "Yeah," I said. "Sure." That should have been my second warning. Instead, I told myself she was just confident, socially fluent, the kind of person who knew how to move through rooms without apologizing. I admired that about her. Sloan didn't push. She didn't interrogate me. She didn't flirt in any obvious way. She just stayed close, walked with me between classes, sat near me in lectures, stepped in when conversations got awkward. And something strange happened. Things got easier. People stopped pressing me, stopped trying to decode me, stopped making assumptions out loud. For someone like me, quiet, conflict avoidant, always trying not to take up too much space, that kind of ease feels intoxicating. It felt like safety. So when Sloan referred to me as taken again a few days later, I didn't correct her. Not because I was scared, because it felt unnecessary. The lie was doing its job. What I didn't realize, what I couldn't see yet, was that the lie wasn't just protecting me anymore. It was becoming something else. Something with weight. Something with expectations. And Sloan Mercer was paying very close attention to how willing I was to let it grow. If I had known where that one sentence would take me, maybe I would have stopped it right there. Or maybe I still wouldn't have. Because the hardest part to admit isn't that I lied. It's that, for a while, being believed felt better than being honest. Here's the part one didn't expect. I thought the lie would make me invisible. I thought it would close a door. Instead, it made Sloan Mercer look at me like I'd just unlocked something. After that first night, she didn't disappear the way people usually do once they've categorized you. She didn't flirt, either, not obviously. She just paid attention, the kind that feels intentional without being loud. She remembered where I sat in lecture and chose the seat next to mine like it was coincidence. She matched my pace when we walked across campus, slowing down without making a show of it. She stepped into conversations right before they turned awkward, then stepped out again before I had to say thank you. It was subtle, polished, and it worked. Because for the first time since I'd transferred to Westbridge, I felt like the room wasn't waiting for me to mess up. I didn't realize how tense I'd been until I wasn't. Sloan had a way of being comfortable in public spaces that I didn't. She spoke easily. People listened. Not because she was loud, but because she sounded certain, like she belonged exactly where she was standing. Being near her felt like borrowing that certainty for a moment. I told myself that's all it was. One afternoon, we were sitting on the steps outside the Humanities building when someone from my seminar walked by and waved. "Hey, Rowan," she said. "You coming to the study thing tonight?" I opened my mouth to answer, and Sloan said, lightly, "She's busy." The girl paused, looked between us, nodded. "Oh, right. Sorry." She walked away. I laughed, because that's what I do when I don't know how to react. I could have answered. Sloan shrugged. "You don't owe anyone explanations." The thing is, she was right. That's what made it dangerous. Because it felt good to not have to clarify myself, to not have to manage other people's expectations, to let someone else close the conversation for me. Sloan wasn't taking anything from me, I told myself. She was taking things off my plate. People started adjusting around us. Not dramatically, just enough that I noticed. Invitations slowed. Casual flirtation disappeared. Assumptions settled into place without discussion. When someone asked about my girlfriend, it wasn't with curiosity, it was with polite acknowledgement. I'd done that, with one sentence, and Sloan was reinforcing it without ever asking my permission. She introduced me to people as taken, like it was a courtesy, like she was saving them time. Every time it happened, I felt a flicker of discomfort, and then relief would smother it. Because correcting her would mean explaining, and explaining meant exposure. So I stayed quiet. One night, as we walked back from the library, Sloan glanced at me and said, "You don't seem like someone who enjoys being watched." I laughed softly. "Is it that obvious?" She smiled. "Only to people who notice." There it was again. That feeling. Like she saw me in a way that felt specific. Not romantic, exactly. Intentional. "I don't like attention," I admitted. "I know," she said. "That's why this works." I stopped walking. "What works?" She turned to face me, expression calm. "People leave you alone." The words landed heavier than she probably meant them to. "I guess," I said slowly. She tilted her head. "Do you want them not to?" I didn't answer right away, because the truth was I didn't miss the attention. I didn't miss the questions. I didn't miss the constant need to perform normalcy. "I'm fine," I said finally. Sloan studied my face for a second longer than necessary, then nodded. Good. She didn't say for now. She didn't have to. That night, lying in bed, I replayed the day with a strange mix of comfort and unease. Nothing bad had happened. No lines crossed. No threats made. No demands issued. So why did it feel like something had shifted? I scrolled through my phone and noticed messages I hadn't replied to, not because I didn't want to, but because I hadn't felt the urgency. I'd been insulated, protected by a story that required no maintenance from me anymore. Sloan was maintaining it. I told myself I should probably clarify things soon. Set the record straight. Keep it from getting complicated. But the next morning, when I saw her waiting near the cafe, coffee already in hand, smiling like this was normal, I didn't say anything. Because part of me liked being chosen. Liked that someone confident and composed had decided I was worth orbiting. And part of me didn't want to find out what would happen if I stepped out of that orbit. That's the thing no one tells you about lies like this. They don't trap you with force. They trap you by making the truth feel inconvenient. Here's how the lie tightened. Not all at once. Not dramatically. It tightened the way habits do quietly, through repetition, until you forget what it felt like before. At first, it was just convenience. When people asked about my girlfriend, Sloane answered for me before I could. Not aggressively. Not possessively. Just smoothly, like she was finishing a sentence I'd already started. She's busy. She's not looking. She's taken. Every time she said it, the conversation ended faster than it would have if I'd explained myself. Fewer follow-ups. Fewer sideways looks. Less pressure. And every time I told myself, I'll correct it later. Later became flexible. Later became theoretical. Later became something I kept pushing back because nothing was technically going wrong. Except things were changing. I just didn't label it that way yet. I noticed it first in small absences. A group chat that went quiet. An invite that didn't come. A study session that happened without me. No one was rude about it. No one cut me off outright. They just adjusted. The way people do when they think they already know your boundaries. I'd see photos later and feel a flicker of something confusion, maybe, but then I'd remind myself this was the trade-off. Less access. Less friction. Safety always costs something. That's what I told myself. Sloane seemed aware of the shift before I was. You don't miss it, she said once when I mentioned feeling out of the loop. Miss what? I asked. Being available, she replied, like it was a phase I'd outgrown. I laughed, uncertain. I guess not. She smiled. Exactly. There was that word again. Exactly. Like she was confirming a decision we'd made together. The first time I tried to reclaim space, it felt wrong in my body. A girl from my literature class caught up to me after lecture. She'd always been friendly, not close, but easy. Hey, she said. A few of us are grabbing dinner later. You should come. I felt a genuine spark of interest. Not romantic, just human. Normal. Yeah, I said, surprising myself. I'd like that. Sloane appeared beside me like she'd been summoned. Tonight, she asked, eyes flicking briefly to the girl, then back to me. Yeah, I said. I think so. Sloane's smile didn't fade, but something in it sharpened. You didn't mention it. I didn't think I needed to, I said lightly. The girl shifted uncomfortably. I can text you the details? Actually, Sloane said calmly, Rowan already has plans. Both of them looked at me. This was the moment. I could have corrected her. Could have said no, actually. Could have told the truth. Instead, I hesitated. Just long enough. The girl nodded quickly. Oh, sorry. Maybe another time. She walked off before I could stop her. I stared after her, chest tight. I didn't say no. Sloane turned to me, expression still composed. You didn't say yes either. That's not the same thing. She tilted her head. Isn't it? I didn't answer, because suddenly I wasn't sure. That was when I started noticing how often I deferred. Not because Sloane demanded it. Because pushing back felt like work. Because letting her steer felt easier. She'd say things like, you don't need to explain yourself. They don't really care. Why make things complicated? Each sentence landed softly, reasonably, wrapped in concern. And each one chipped away at something I didn't realize I was surrendering, my authority over my own story. I told myself I was overthinking it. I told myself this was what partnership looked like, shared narrative, mutual cover. Except there was no partnership. There was just me staying quiet and her filling in the gaps. The first time I tried to clarify the lie out loud, it came out wrong. We were alone, sitting on the library steps, the campus quiet around us. "Sloan," I said carefully about the girlfriend thing. She looked at me, patient, expectant. "It started as a joke," I said. "Well, not a joke. Just something I said." I didn't think she waited. I rushed. People don't really need to think it's real. That was when her expression changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. "You already told everyone," she said. Calm. Even. "Why ruin that now?" The question caught me off guard. "I'm not ruining anything," I said. "I'm just clarifying." "For who?" she asked. I opened my mouth, closed it. She continued, voice steady. "People are comfortable with the version they have. You're comfortable too. So why destabilize it?" "I just don't want this to get weird," I said. She smiled faintly. "It's already settled." That word again. Settled. Like a case closed without my signature. That night, I lay awake replaying the conversation. I didn't feel threatened. I felt managed. Like I'd handed someone else the steering wheel because I was tired of navigating. And maybe that was my fault. Maybe I'd invited this by lying in the first place. But here's the thing no one warns you about. When a lie starts benefiting someone else more than you, it stops being something you can take back easily. Because now it has momentum. And Sloan Mercer wasn't just reinforcing the lie anymore. She was building something on top of it. And I was standing underneath, telling myself the weight wasn't that heavy. I didn't realize the lie had crossed a line until it stopped sounding like something I could edit. Up until then, it still felt adjustable, like a story that could be revised if I found the right moment, the right tone, the right courage. That illusion ended the night I finally told Sloan the truth. Not hinted, not softened, told. We were alone in her apartment, quiet, controlled, everything in its place. The kind of space that looked like no one ever lost control inside it. She poured tea like this was a normal evening, like we weren't standing on the edge of something fragile. I held the mug between my hands even though I wasn't cold. "There isn't a girlfriend," I said. The words came out small, apologetic. Like I was confessing something shameful instead of correcting a mistake. Sloan didn't react. She didn't blink. Didn't frown. Didn't ask me to repeat myself. She just set her mug down carefully and looked at me. "How long?" she asked. From the beginning, I admitted. I said it once and didn't fix it. And then it just kept going. I waited for anger. I would have understood anger. What I got was a smile. Not warm, not cruel, measured. "Do you know how humiliating it would be," she said calmly, "if people realized you let me believe that?" My stomach dropped. "I didn't let you believe anything," I said quickly. "I just didn't correct it." Her eyes stayed on mine. "That's the same thing." "No, it's not," I said. "I never told you it was real." "You told everyone else," she replied. "You let me stand next to you. Speak for you. Deflect for you." Her voice never rose. That was the worst part. "If you end it now," she continued, "you don't just embarrass yourself. You embarrass me." The air felt heavier, like the room had shrunk. "I'm sorry," I said automatically. She tilted her head. "I know. That wasn't forgiveness. That was confirmation." "I just wanted to stop," I said. "I don't want people assuming things that aren't true." Sloan studied me for a long moment. Then she leaned back, crossing her arms. "You don't understand how narratives work," she said. "Once people accept a version of you, they resist revisions, especially when the revision makes someone else look foolish." My chest tightened. "So what, you're saying I have to keep lying?" "I'm saying," she replied evenly, "that ending it would cost you more than continuing it." There it was. Not a threat. A calculation. "And if I don't?" I asked. She smiled again, softer this time, almost kind. Then people will wonder why you needed to backpedal, she said. They'll ask questions. And questions don't usually land gently on people who change their stories. I stared at her, heart pounding. This was the moment I should have stood up, walked out, said no. Instead, I felt something colder settle in. Fear, not of Sloane, of what she was right about. Sloane reached out then, not to touch me, but to adjust the sleeve of my sweater, like a partner straightening something familiar. Relax, she said. You don't have to do anything. Just don't undo what already works. What already works. For who? I nodded. That nod was the moment the lie stopped belonging to me. After that, everything felt different. Sloane stopped asking, stopped checking, stopped phrasing things like suggestions. She corrected people without hesitation, referred to me as unavailable, committed, spoken for. And when I flinched, she noticed. You're safe, she'd say. Why are you acting like you're not? I didn't know how to explain that safety shouldn't feel like shrinking, that being protected shouldn't require silence. But every time I considered pushing back, I heard her words again. It would cost you more. And the worst part? She might have been right. So I stayed quiet. I let the claim stand. It started happening in public, small, precise interruptions that made my stomach drop every time. We'd be standing in a circle of people, and someone would ask me something simple, harmless. Rowan, are you coming to the open mic tonight? I'd open my mouth, and Sloane would say, she won't be. Not she can't. Not she's busy. She won't be. Like the decision had already been made. People accepted it immediately. No confusion. No resistance. Why would there be? From the outside, it looked like familiarity, like closeness, like someone who knew me well enough to answer for me. I laughed it off at first. That nervous, polite laugh I use when I don't want anyone to notice I'm uncomfortable. Yeah, I'd say. Probably not. And that's how it kept happening. Each time, my silence became confirmation. Each time, it got harder to interrupt the version of me she was presenting because now it had witnesses. I started feeling it in my body before my mind caught up. A tightness in my chest when she stepped in. A spike of anxiety when someone addressed me directly. The weird relief when she handled it so I didn't have to. That was the part one hated admitting to myself. It was easier. Easier to let her manage expectations. Easier to avoid awkwardness. Easier to not explain why I wasn't actually taken, why I'd said something untrue and let it snowball. Easier to let her speak. And that ease was slowly erasing me. One afternoon, we were in the student center again, the same place where this whole thing had started. Someone from my major waved us over, smiling. Rowan, we're planning a weekend trip. You in? I hesitated. I actually wanted to go. Sloane didn't wait. She can't, she said. We already have plans. The word we rang in my ears. I turned to her. We do. Her hand rested lightly at the small of my back. Not possessive. Not aggressive. Anchoring. You forgot? She asked, eyebrows lifting slightly. I hadn't. But saying that out loud would have meant unraveling everything. The group nodded politely and moved on. I stood there, heart racing, face hot. That wasn't true, I said quietly once we were alone. Sloane looked at me like I'd missed something obvious. It didn't have to be. That's not the point. She studied me for a moment, then sighed soft, controlled, like she was disappointed but patient. You're making this harder than it needs to be, she said. Why are you resisting something that protects you? Because it doesn't feel like protection anymore, I said. Her expression cooled. This is what protection looks like, she replied. Consistency. Boundaries. People knowing where you stand. But I didn't choose those boundaries, I said, voice shaking now. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. You chose them the moment you lied. The words landed heavy. Because she wasn't wrong. I had started this. I had opened the door. And now she was standing in it, arms crossed, reminding me how cold it was outside. After that, the enforcement became quieter, but firmer. She didn't interrupt me every time anymore. She didn't have to. I started anticipating her corrections, adjusting myself before she needed to, declining things preemptively, editing my behavior to match the story she was maintaining. I became careful, and careful people disappear in pieces. I stopped posting, stopped going out alone, stopped correcting assumptions when they were made casually, because correcting them publicly felt dangerous now, not socially, but emotionally. If I told the truth, I would look unstable, inconsistent, unreliable, and she would look wronged. That imbalance mattered more than facts. That's the part no one prepares you for. Truth doesn't always sound convincing when a lie has been rehearsed better. The breaking point came during a conversation that should have been insignificant. Someone new, a friend of a friend. She smiled at me and said, "So, how did you two meet?" I froze. Before I could even process the question, Sloane answered. "We didn't," she said smoothly. "She's not available." The words hit me like a slap. Not because they were cruel, because they were final. Something in me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but cleanly. I felt it the way you feel a bone give under pressure. Sudden, irreversible. "That's not true," I said. The words came out steady, clear. The circle went silent.